Hi, in this video I want to give you a quick tour of the SAP BusinessObjects 4.3 interface. In this video I'm going to show you how we log into Launchpad and then create a report in the SAP Web Intelligence application. So to log into Launchpad, we typically go to the name of a server in a browser, go to the name of a server or a URL provided by a client, and then /BOE/BI. And BOE BI are both in all caps. That's because we're running typically running Tomcat as a web server, and Tomcat is case sensitive, so uppercase BOE, uppercase BI. And what that'll take you to is a Launchpad here. Depending on the configuration of the environment, you may see a login page, or you may be asked to authenticate through a third-party identity provider. But by default, whenever you install BusinessObjects, you'll get the standard login page. So you'll type in your server name, which this is the CMS, the Central Management Server name, and then the port that it communicates on. The standard port is 6400. Typically, that's already in there by default. Type in your username and then your password. So I'll just select my password here and click sign in. So when we log in here, this is the main Launchpad at BusinessObjects 4.3. This is called the Fiori, or they call it a Fiori-fied Launchpad or a Fiori type Launchpad. So this actually came on as an option at later versions of 4.2, I believe at Support Pack 5 and higher. If you go up here to the top and go to About, you can see that we're running 4.3 Support Pack 1 Patch 7, which as of this recording is one of the latest. So this is the full 4.3 environment. So as you look along the top here, you'll notice we have a SAP logo, welcome with your name. There's a BI Launchpad that tells you where you are with a drop down. As we're navigating through reports, opening things up and working with our environment, this will populate with a listing of available tabs or available things that we can view. Then you have a platform-wide search, refreshing the view, notifications. This is a web assistant that sort of gives you some contextual help around the environment. And then your profile that includes the ability to change your settings, editing home page, seeing your about page, help, and log out. So you'll notice in the second line here we have home, favorites, recent documents, recently run, and applications. As you click on each one of those, that'll take you down to a line of tiles here. So this tile interface is easy to view. It looks very much like the Fiori type applications from SAP and other platforms such as S4HANA. It's also touch enabled so that you could bring this up on, say, an iPad and touch these tiles very easily. So what happens is whenever you click home, it'll take you to this listing of home tiles. Favorites will take you down into favorites, so that these are the reports or objects that you've marked as favorites. Recently documents will take you down to the recent documents line. These are the documents that you've recently run. And then recently run, these are documents that have been recently scheduled, so that will show up there. And then all of your applications here at the bottom. So these are the applications that you would have access to. And that includes SAP Analytics Cloud and Web Intelligence. So we'll go back home here. So now what I want to do is show you how we create a Webby report. If you go into Applications and then click the Web Intelligence tile, you'll notice that in the HTML interface here, the Web Intelligence application pops up underneath the blue line at the top. The blue line still gives us access to the Launchpad. But then everything underneath, starting with the lighter blue line here and all the way down, is all the Web Intelligence application embedded within Launchpad. So because we're creating a brand new Webby report, you can select what source you want to create. So if you just want to play around with Webby and have a look at it with no source, you could pick no data source. That also allows you to build reusable templates that doesn't have data attached to it. We can use a universe, Web Intelligence documents, Excel spreadsheets, text files, and so forth. So we can access all of those directly. What I'm going to do is pick universe. And a universe is a semantic layer that stands in between the end user in Webby and a database like SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, HANA. So you can build universes and all of those. That way it abstracts the technical details of querying databases from the end user. So you can see we have three universes that were published to the business objects environment. I'll pick this insurance claims universe. This is one that I use quite often with training in business objects and also in SAP Analytics Cloud. And I'll hit OK. So you're going to see a query panel pop up, and this is going to provide you with a listing of all the objects that have been built in that business objects universe and then published out to the business objects server. So you can see we have a listing of our dimensions here, and you notice a little flower icon there. Those are all dimensions. And then I have a few measures here. The main difference are dimensions are pretty much text, like addresses. You'll notice that we have auto make and model of specific automobiles. And then measures are typically numbers that can be used in a calculation. And in this case, this data set has to do with fictitious insurance claims. And so the dimensions help us describe the records for those insurance claims. Where did it happen? What were the injury counts? What time of the day did it happen? And then the measures here give us some quantifiable data. So what was the total claim amount for each of those insurance claims? And then the injury, property, and vehicle claim are the breakdown of the total claim amount. So these three measures together, summed up, give you the total claim amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag some of these objects, some of these dimensions and measures over to the results objects. And so the results objects is a window that provides me with information on which objects I want to use to build my report. So I'll pick auto make, auto model, auto year. Let's see, we'll use incident state. I can also double click and that'll automatically drop them over there as well. I'll use incident state. I like using fraud reported. And then I can also select multiple objects at once. So I can pick total claim amount, hold shift on my keyboard and pick vehicle claim, and it picks those two measures and those two objects and everything in between. You can also control click to click specific items. So now I've picked those four. I'll drag and drop it there. So you'll notice we have a query filters here. I could filter this out on specific years, specific dimensions like fraud reported, whether fraud was reported yes or no, depending on the study I'm trying to do here. I can also put in query filters on measures. So if I want to see total claim amounts greater than $10,000, I can filter those out as well. And then as I'm building my query here, there's a button up top that shows you the query script. So we don't know what database this is building on. We don't know where the database is stored, what server it is, whether it's in the cloud or on premises or what. We just know that it's available as a universe. So behind the scenes, it's building this select statement for us. And we still don't know what database we're using, what SQL language we should be using, what details we have. That's where the universe comes in and does all that for us. So, but you can see select all of these objects from insurance claim CSV. So this looks like we're using a CSV file, which we are. I built this universe on a CSV file that's hosted in the business objects environment. And then we have groups here because we have summations on measures. So we have a group by clause. And so I'm just going to click close, and now I'm going to pick run. So Webby tries to get us up and running quickly, so it gives us a report that we can start with. The report starts with auto make, model, year, so all the dimensions that we have and all the measures that we've got. But if you look around this interface, so we have our toolbar up top, file, data, insert, analyze, display, and navigate. File has to do with saving documents, undo, redo, and then there's some print and export capabilities here. Data has everything to do with the data provider and refreshing your data. So if you click edit, you can go back into that query panel and make modifications to that query and click run if you wanted to add new objects. Refreshing data, if you know that your data provider has been refreshed and you want the latest data, that tells you that, and this was about a minute ago that was refreshed, so you can hit refresh again and get the latest data. And then there's a few other things like changing the data source. If you wanted to change it from a universe to a Webby report, you can modify the data source, or you can purge the data out of the document if you're working with sensitive data. In the insert section, this is where we can add new objects to the design of our report. The most popular would be a table and a chart. You can click the down arrow to pick different types of tables and charts. You also have cells. So if you wanted to use, I like using the query summary whenever I'm doing some diagnoses on Webby reports and trying to optimize queries, because that'll tell you how long it took to run a report or a query, how many objects it returned, how many records it returned. That you have other things like page numbers and total pages and things like that you can use for the design of your report. Inserting sections is another capability of Webby, where you can section a report off on specific dimension values. Analysis of Webby reports, drilling, filtering, adding in formulas, changing the display, including seeing the structure of your report, being able to fit the report to the page and things like that. And then navigating from one page to the next. You'll see as we navigate down, the table continues, and we have, if I go to the end here, we have a total of 10 pages in this report. So then over here on the right, we have the ability to change our the report data. So if you wanted to drop in some filters, you can filter out the data. If you wanted to put in links in the report, you could do that there. If you wanted to change the format of the report, depending on what you select inside of your report, these formatting objects may change. And then in the subline here, you'll see we have appearance settings, text settings, and then other formatting settings. So depending on what you select, so say you try to pick the entire table, you're going to see the properties, the display settings, and appearance settings and all that for the table as a whole. And then you can go into each individual cell and make changes, or columns and make changes. And then over here on the far right, you have the ability of seeing what objects are available from the universe. So you could go create new objects that you brought in your query and drop those into your report. So you wanted to say you wanted to add in a pie chart that shows the total claim amount by fraud reported. That would be pretty easy, because you would pick total claim amount by fraud reported, and I held down the control button on my keyboard, drop that in, and you'll see it gives us a quick table. You can then do a right click on that table, and you see the context menu that pops up. You pick turn into, and you can go pick a pie chart. And the pie chart, the report will update and change that table into a pie chart with two sections, one for fraud reported yes and one with fraud reported no, so you can directly compare those two dimension values. So then you have some other capabilities here, like looking at the overall report structure that could help you with formatting, especially in more complex reports. Looking at the report map, whenever you have sections in your report or breaks in your report, you can jump down to specific locations. Commentary, if you wanted to share commentary with your end users. And then information about the report in general, which includes the date it was created, who owns it, optional description and keywords for further searching, being able to find these reports again. And then looking at document options here. So you have document options, some data options, and then what the default style looks like. And now that we have this Webby report, we built the Webby report, now we want to save it. So if we go to File, you can go to Save As, and then give it a name, and we'll call this Insurance Claims. So that's the file name. Whenever you save the report, you have the ability of using your private folders, your My Folders here, so you could click inside of it, and you see I have a few other reports saved here. You can also create subfolders here, so I could create a folder in my favorites called Insurance Reports, and hit Create, and that'll create a folder there. And then I'll hit Save, and then that'll save the report inside of the Insurance Reports folder. Okay, so now if I wanted to close this report, remember at the beginning of our talk we talked about the drop down here. Now that I have insurance claims open, if I wanted to close this report, I would just hit the close button here, the close document button, and that will close the report and take us back to the launch pad. You can always click on Home and go back up to your folders, your listing of all of your reports there. All of your recent documents, you can pick recent documents here, view all recent documents, and you can see the ones that we've run. It looks like our report's not quite in there yet, so we'll go back, and to go find that report I'm going to go pick folders in my Home tab. And then in personal folders, you see we have the insurance reports folder. And now I can click insurance claims, and that will reopen that report. So then it automatically launches me into view mode here. So this is what your end users would see that would have access to view this report. If you wanted to modify this report further, you would go click edit. And now we're back in the full screen here. Make your changes, go to file, save, and then up at the top, close the document. So that's a quick overview of Webby. There's a lot more that we could do with Webby, but I hope this was helpful. I think this would give us enough to get started. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.